After making two-tone scrunchies, here we have another type of stylish scrunchie, a knot scrunchie. It's simply an additional bow-like knot to your regular scrunchie. You can make a single knot or double knot depending on how you like to wear it. There are several different ways to make a scrunchie. In this video, I'm going to show you the method I use to make scrunchies, and if you watched our previous video, that part won't be much of a difference to you. Then I'm also going to show you how to add the knotted bow tie. Don't worry, we have a free PDF pattern for that part as well. Now let's get right into the project, starting with the fabric measurements. I'm using pre-washed cotton fabric with this colorful design and cut yours measuring 4 by 22 inches in size. This will make a medium-sized scrunchie, and if you need a smaller or larger one, change the measurements according to that. Then we are going to need another piece of fabric for making the knot part, and you'll find the free PDF pattern for that in the description. We'll need to cut 2 from this pattern and make sure you have enough fabric for that. Finally, cut a piece of elastic measuring 7 inches in length, and mine has a width of 3/8 of an inch. I think anywhere between 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch would be fine. Make sure you have all the other regular sewing supplies, and let's start with prepping the elastic into a band. You can simply make 2 tight knots using the 2 ends of the elastic like this, and I think this is the easiest way. Or you can place one end of the elastic on top of the other end, leaving a small area to sew them together. Then using the zigzag stitch, sew the 2 ends together by sewing back and forth several times. I mean, you can use your regular store-bought hair bands for this part as well, but the most ones are not that good and they break very easily with time. Because of that, I like to make my own elastic bands when making scrunchies. Pick any method you prefer, and you can even hand sew this part easily. Make sure you have sewed it strong enough to make it into a proper elastic band. Now leave the elastic band aside for a minute and place the fabric piece for the scrunchie facing the wrong side up. From one of the longer ends of the fabric, fold it about 1/2 inch towards the inside and keep it folded from one end to the other. Use an iron to press it along, and I don't think hand pressing will do much good since this is a longer area. With that said, this is the method I use to make scrunchies, and I think this will work best with natural fabrics like cotton. Now move on to the remaining longer side and do the same with that side as well. Keeping this folded crease is the most important part of this method, and if your fabric supports that, you can make this method work. After folding and ironing both longer sides of the fabric piece, fold the entire thing in half facing the right sides of the fabric facing each other. Place the 2 raw edges aligning with each other, and you can use a pin to keep that in place. Unfold the folded parts on that area, and we are going to sew along this line next. The important thing is you need to keep things unfolded for now to make this process smooth. If you had your settings changed to zigzag for the previous elastic band step, make sure it's changed into regular straight stitch. Do a little back stitch at the beginning and sew straight, leaving a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Don't forget to do a little back stitch at the ending and then trim the thread. After this point, we are only one step away from making a regular scrunchie. Spread the seams apart by hand pressing it, and then fold the things as they were previously. The crucial step is proper ironing by keeping the crease while this project is done. So don't wait too long once you start working on it. Then gather the fabric like the way I do and place the elastic band over it. While keeping the elastic band in the middle, fold the fabric in half, touching the two folded ends at both sides. Start at the seam area and keep the seams aligning with each other. Use a pin to keep that in place. Make sure the elastic band is gonna stay in the middle without slipping away, and adjust it by spreading the fabric equally on both sides. As you can guess, our next step is to sew all the way around. It'll be easier to start closer to the seam area since it's aligned and pinned. Start to sew keeping the two folded ends aligned and sew closer to the margin, generally less than 1/4 inch seam allowance. Don't forget to do a little back stitch at the beginning to securely start the sewing. Now sew straight by keeping the two folded edges aligned throughout this step. Because there is an elastic band in the middle, you need to stretch and adjust the fabric every once in a while to sew all the way around. I have seen several ways of making scrunchies and none of them seems to be working for me. So I came up with this method, and to be honest, it works just fine for me. That's the thing about creating and crafting. It allows you to find your own way of making things. If you're not okay with this method, you can skip this part and go right into the part where I make a knot for this scrunchie. Personally, I love this method because I can assemble everything in one go. When you reach the starting point, do a little back stitch to securely end the sewing and then trim all threads. Now just like that, we got ourselves a beautiful scrunchie. If you think it's hard for you to sew while there is an elastic band in the middle because you need to keep adjusting and stretching the fabric, don't worry, I have a solution for that too. In that case, follow the exact same steps up to the point where you did folding, ironing and then sewing the two raw edges together. One important thing is don't make a piece of elastic into a band yet. Leave it as it is. Then, like we did with the previous one, spread the seams apart and try to keep the two margins folded. Starting at the seam area, fold the fabric in half, touching the two folded ends together. Make sure the seams are aligned as well. You can use a pin to keep that in place. After that, keep folding the fabric in half all around the fabric circle. You can even use several pins to keep everything in place. This will make a fabric loop once we sew the two folded margins together. Another thing is we need to leave about 2 inches of space unsewn to insert the elastic band for the scrunchie. Using a heat erasable fabric marking pen, I'm gonna mark 2 points leaving that 2 inches space. Starting at one of the marked points, sew all the way around until you reach the other marked point. If you can remind yourself when to start and end, you don't necessarily need to mark the points. Start by doing a little back stitch and sew straight closer to the folded opening end. In this method, you don't need to deal with stretching the fabric throughout the process. Just make sure the two folded margins are aligned. Once you reach the other marked point, do a little back stitch to securely end the sewing. At this point, we have a fabric loop with a small opening for the elastic. Now take the elastic piece and connect a safety pin to one end of the elastic. If you can safely keep the other end without slipping away, you don't need to go for a second safety pin. Otherwise, attach another safety pin to the other end of the elastic. It will make things more comfortable for you. Now from one of the sides, insert the safety pin through the opening we left and move it along the loop until it comes through the other side of the opening. Push the safety pin forward through the fabric and then pull the fabric backwards to move forward. Repeat the same motion while keeping the other end of the elastic without slipping away, and that's where the second safety pin comes in handy. Once the safety pin comes through the other end of the opening, remove both safety pins from the elastic. You can now tie 2 strong knots using the 2 ends of the elastic, or you can sew the 2 ends together like we did with the first scrunchie. It's totally up to you. You can trim the 2 ends of the elastic if it seems too long and then let it slip through the fabric loop. Stretch and adjust the scrunchie to keep things equally gathered, and don't forget we are still one step away from completing this one. Now we need to enclose the opening we left, and for that, top stitch along that area closer to the opening margin. First stretch the fabric around that area, and what I do is, I try to start at the point where the stitches ended and then end where the stitches start again. That way it will appear as one continuous line. Even here, don't forget to do a little back stitch at the beginning and at the ending. At this point, the first part of the project is completed, and as for myself, I made 2 scrunchies to show you the 2 slightly different methods I use to make scrunchies. Now let's move on to the second part of the project. For that, first print the free PDF pattern I have provided and cut the pattern piece out. Then take the piece of fabric you are going to use to cut 2 pieces for the knot. The easiest way is to make the fabric piece into 2 layers and make sure the right sides of the fabric are facing each other. Then place the template on top of the fabric layers and use a few pins to keep the template and 2 fabric layers in place. You can now simply cut around the template piece. After cutting the required fabric pieces, remove the pins and the template. Next step is to sew these 2 fabric layers together, so you can use a couple of pins to keep the layers aligned and in place. As I mentioned earlier, these 2 fabric layers are already facing their right sides together. Now mark 2 points at the straight longer side of the fabric, leaving about 2 inches of space. Starting at one of the marked points, sew all the way around until you reach the other marked point. We are leaving this space to turn the right side out at the end. Start to sew by doing a little back stitch and then sew straight. I'm going to leave about a 1/4 inch or less seam allowance for this step. Take things slow when you are moving from a straight area to a curvy area. Consider it as driving around a bend. You need to move the fabric according to that. Other than that, there is nothing special here, and keep sewing until you reach the other marked point. Do a little back stitch at the end and trim all threads. Remove the pins, and now let's turn the right side out using the opening we left. But before doing that, take your time to trim the bulky areas at the 2 corners. Also make small cuts at the 2 curvy areas like this to reduce the tension and keep the shape once turned right side out. Please be careful and make sure not to damage any of the stitches while you are doing so. Now it's time to turn the right side out. There are 2 sides directing opposite ways here, so I would say do one side first and then move on to the other. Try to turn things as much as possible with your hands and then use a thin rod like this one to poke out the narrow corners and all sides. Even here, make sure you are not damaging or poking holes in the fabric. After everything is out, Give it a proper hand press or you can even iron it over. I'm just gonna hand press it and try to keep the unsewn seam area towards the inside while you are pressing. As our final sewing step, we can now top stitch this unsewn area to keep things enclosed. If you would like, you can even top stitch all around this shape to keep things more professional. I don't feel like it's that necessary since we are gonna tie it anyway. So I'm just gonna top stitch along the unsewn part only. Don't forget to do a little back stitch at the beginning and at the ending. Sew straight and closer to the opening end to make sure everything is properly enclosed. Make sure there are no hanging threads or anything, and as for the final step, we can now tie this fabric strap to the scrunchie we made earlier. I usually choose the seam area of a scrunchie to tie a knot because that way I can cover that too, but you can tie it anywhere you like. Make a single or double knot as you prefer, and with that done, we are at the end of our project. If you can make these straps longer, you can even tie a larger bow tie instead of a small knot. As you now know the basics, you can change things here and there for your liking. Another thing is when making these straps to tie a knot, you can either use the same fabric as the scrunchie or you can use a different fabric to keep things more interesting. I mean, you can even make different straps to use for one scrunchie and you'll feel like you're using new ones every single time. I hope you'll have fun making these scrunchies, and if you are interested in seeing how I made two-tone scrunchies, make sure to watch that video as well. I'll leave the link in the description. I'm looking forward to your comments, and please don't forget to subscribe as well. Thank you all for watching, and I'll join you in the next one.